Hello, and thank you for joining me for this review of the book I have most recently finished reading, which is, as the thumbnail would suggest to you, Blind Voices by Tom Reamy. So, 2025 seems to be turning into the year where I reread all the old favourites of my childhood and teenage years. And as my last review was for Mac Reynolds, as I was putting it on the shelf under just up here or thereabouts. Oh no, just behind me here. Shelving Mac Reynolds, I saw Blind Voices by Tom Reamy. This is a book that I bought secondhand, though in pretty good condition, when I was a teenager. I've been reading it and rereading it over the years. I've carried this one particular copy around, which is a Berkeley Putnam, around the world with me, and it has so far survived. It is a marvellous book. If you think of a good book as a nice clear glass of your favourite beverage, this is a cut crystal Waterford goblet. The writing is spectacular. So starting with the actual edition, there's no credit on the cover, but the wonderful ISFDB would suggest that this was done by David Claude, and it is a wraparound. So on the cover, you've got a reference to a very famous American art, which is Christina's World, piece of art. And I think that's what they're referencing. But it gives that perfect pastoral sense, which is what this book is all about, only with a touch of the weird. It is realistic artwork, and I've always loved this artwork. On the back, you've got the carnival, which is the centerpiece of the story, if you will. And the cover, Gregory Benford endorses it, not since Bradbury has a fantasy author so captured the dark heart of Midwestern America. And as I was reading it, it did very much remind me of Ray Bradbury every single time I read it, in his fascination with the carnivals and circuses and how they can be a dark horror type environment. On the back, you've got Harlan Ellison saying, "How good is this book? It is breathtakingly good." Now, I admire Harlan Ellison more as an editor than as a writer, but I've got to agree with him on this one. Now, let's talk about Tom Reamy. Many of you may not know Tom Reamy. I personally did not as such know Tom Reamy either. In fact, it was only last year when I alphabetized my author's shelves that I realized that I had not one Tom Reamy, but two. One of my favorite collections of short stories, San Diego Lightfoot Sue, is Tom Reamy's, and I didn't realize that until I was alphabetizing. This is his only novel, and it was published posthumously, I think in 1977. He died, and in 1978 this was published. That's the edition I'm holding right now. And only one novel, and he waited such a long time before writing it. So Tom Reamy was a central figure in the American science fiction and fantasy world, starting in the 50s when, as a teenager, he started to become involved in fandoms, in organizing conventions. He helped publish several magazines, and he knew so many people and was so influential. He had been involved in the scene for, I think, a couple of decades before he actually started writing for it. So in 1950, Teenager became involved. In 1977, he died, very unfortunately. If there were more novels like this in him, the world lost an amazing author when we lost Tom Reamy. He did write a lot of short stories, which have been collected into various anthologies, of which, like I said, this one I own. And in terms of short story collections, not a huge short story fan, but that one is absolutely magnificent. So, Blind Voices. Pastoral, speculative fiction rather than science fiction. There is an element of science in it, but it is certainly not outer space science fiction. The pastoral element is perhaps more pronounced and even better written than Clifford Simak, who is a favourite of mine. We start off this novel, as Reamy describes, I think it's Texas, a small town called Hawley in Midwestern grain fields of America. I don't think the date is ever given, but I feel like it's more toward the 50s and the 70s when it was actually written. It's got that small town atmosphere, young boys running around in summer barefoot, blinding heat with everyone suffering. And there's small hints that made it feel, even when I first read it, as if it was set historically. For example, ice boxes are in use, and when the ice melts, the food starts to go off. The young girls walking around town still wear gloves. Of our 3 female protagonists that start off the novel, one, Rose, is always under a parasol, and she's the judge's daughter. She feels her position in the town perhaps a bit too much. She thinks of the other 2 girls, Francine, the doctor's daughter, and Evie, a rich farmer's daughter, as being her social equals, but wish they were more social equal in behaviour. They were both tanned, which Rose thinks is terrible. And throughout, you've got phrases that aren't contemporary, like underwear, and there's a certain amount of underwear in this, gets called step-ins. And there's something called a bandeau, which I think he means a bra. And I've already revealed the fact there's a certain amount of sex in this book. Some of it not so great. So possibly a trigger warning for unpleasant death of a girl. And there's certainly scenes. I don't think it's gratuitous sex. I don't think it should really offend anyone who enjoys reading books that aimed at the adult audience rather than adult books per se. Enough on that. So into this bucolic, simmering, small town rolls the carnival. Carnival is Dr. Havelock's carnival of phantasmagorical wonder, freaks, etc. And we watch the wagons rolling into town, 3 wagons each drawn by 2 horses, and we find out that early on that there's something not quite right about this carnival. There is a Valentino-style character who goes ahead to prepare the way, and when it looks like there's going to be competition for the spot, he deals with it in an unethical sort of way. But we also find out that the freaks and the magic and everything, there's more that lies beneath. Now, having read this book so much that I'm almost word perfect on it, I of course knew well in advance, but I think the person coming to this book for the first time, like a lot of the Ray Bradbury ones, you will slowly get this sense of impeding doom and evil lurking around the edges. So we follow, our main protagonist is Evie, one of the 3 girls, and she goes up to the carnival show with her date of that night, but both her 2 friends, Francine and Rose, are there. Rose is dating Evie's brother, who's gone away to Harvard, and Francine is with her boyfriend, and they all see this show, and the show is beautifully described. You've got some really hokey, obvious carnival type tricks like the Electro Man and the Invisible Woman, and then you've got these other things that are far beyond the par of any normal trick. You have got the Minotaur and Eve's brother Hal, coming from Harvard. He's a man about town. He knows all of this is tricks, so he tries to pull off the horns of the Minotaur, and he can't make any sense of how the trick's being done. He knows it's a trick, of course. And us as observers can see other things like the Snake Woman. There is no trick there. It's real. People of the small town get enough of the very tricksy things like the electric man, that they go away going, oh, it's all tricks, of course. We don't quite know how it's done. The final big event of the show is Angel the Magic Boy, who flies through the air and does all these amazing things with Dr. Havelock himself guiding him through them. Now, Angel is a albino, and we learn that he is a mute. And we have this slow development of Angel meets Eve, and eventually they turn into a couple. That's an overall narrative. This is not a love story per se. There's a love story in it. Rather, this is the story of the circus, Dr. Havelock's malign power, and all the things that happen around it. It is beautifully written, beautifully described. The characters have depths and fascination. With 2 lines, he creates a character that is more real in your inner world and more visible than many characters that have got whole books about them. So, I don't really want to say too much about the plot itself, but we meet various people who are associated with the carnival. We meet various people around town. We see this truly brutal intersection of the two, and there is darkness, there's horror, there is murder and excitement, and there's a grand magical battle at the end, which is beautifully written, thoroughly exciting. There is nothing about this book that I can't praise. It is a truly admirable piece of work, and I think that anyone who has enjoyed Ray Bradbury, any sort of speculative fiction, anything a bit spooky and horror-y, and it's not quite horror enough for full horror tag, but supernatural definitely. Yeah, recommend it to all of you. What else to say about this book? It is a gem. It is a gem. I'm really sorry to hear, which I only found out yesterday actually, that Reamy only ever wrote this one novel. And next time I need to satisfy that, I guess it's short stories and look for more by him. Thank you for watching. I know this is more of a rave than an actual review, but that's probably because I think you should all go out and read this spectacularly good book. Thank you for watching. Have a great day and read good books. If not Tom Reamy, other good books.